What's up, everybody? This is Miko, the entrepreneur. I am here with Jessica, and we are going to have a good conversation. So make sure you get your popcorn, get your drink, and just chill, okay? Hey, Jessica, what's up?
Nothing. Just sitting here in my Brooklyn apartment, hoping my dog doesn't bark like crazy.
Don't be doing all that barking. All right, guys. So, look, I got a good one for you today. So, if you're into film production, production sets, New York, a little Florida, a little theme park, then this is for you. Now, Jessica, I want to tell my story of how we met. Do you
Okay.
mind?
No.
Okay. All right. So I think we met at Robert A. Brilliant,
Yes.
which for the short name RAB.
Yes.
And I remember when I first met you, I don't know.
2011.
Yes, I was trying to think of the year.
Yeah.
So
12 years.
yes. So
Long
I
time.
remember when I first saw you, it's something about like you and your energy. I don't know what it was, but and I know this gonna sound weird, but I used to hug you all the time when I saw you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the time, like I would just like when I hug you, like I would just hold you
Yes.
for like
Well, in
sometimes
the
minutes.
middle of the workspace. Not in not in a break room, not in the parking lot. In front of all the people taking
Every
surveys.
right now, I don't know if you thought I was just weird. Like, why is this woman hugging me? I don't know her that well. She is my personal space. But I just wanted to say, like, every time I hugged you, it was some type of energy. I don't know if it's a Virgo thing. We're both
Maybe.
Virgos. And I don't know, like, every time I would hug you, like, it was just good energy. And I would just, and it didn't dawn on me until later, like, man, you really hugged her a long time. Did she think that was weird? So I don't know if you ever thought that was weird or other people thought that was weird. I didn't think it was weird because
I
I
don't know
like
if
hugging
other
you.
people thought it was weird because I never asked other people if they thought it was weird. But I come from, and even at that time, like a very long history of theater, dance, entertainment, people, and we're all very
Mhm.
huggy kind of people, very touchy feely, very like all up in somebody else's space anyway. So it was just normal to me. I'm a
What were
hugger. It's fine. I'm a hugger. It doesn't make me uncomfortable.
okay?
It
I'm
does
gonna
make
say
it,
what
it only makes me uncomfortable when I'm like, I don't know if they're going in for a hug, and I
right.
go in for a hug, and then I find out that's not what they wanted.
Mhm.
Then I'm like, oh,
Right. Well, I'll say one more thing about the hug and then we can move forward.
okay.
So I don't know if you remember what I said to you when I came to New York like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And
Okay.
we met up. And the first day, like when I saw you, because we were meeting for breakfast,
Yes.
and I came up to you and I hugged you, and I was like, man, this gonna be a long hug because the
Because you had to get
time,
like years in. You got
I
like eight
said,
years of hugs in. I do remember you saying that.
yeah, I said it's gonna be a long hug because the time that I hugged you. I want to just hug you.
Did your moment.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So thank you for not looking at me weird or thinking I was weird because I like the energy that you gave and when I hug you. All right.
Well, that's good. I like that I give off a good energy.
So you owe me 4 more years of hugs.
All right.
Oh boy.
I'll
Okay,
get
okay, okay.
ready. Get ready for it.
All right. All right. So all jokes aside, um,
For the moment.
tell me, right. So tell me about when you first got started into working at Universal and what you did, if you don't mind, and then how it led you to make your big move to New York and start doing other things with production.
Okay. So it's a journey. Um, I stumbled into, I mean, I did audition for it, but I didn't expect it, a theater scholarship in college. So ended up getting my degree in theater instead of accounting, which was my original plan. While I was there, I learned that I really loved um, set design. I loved costume design. I loved set design. I thought it was really great. Um, and it was very interesting to me. And then after college, on a whim, a friend needed a roommate in Florida. And I was like, my sister was already living there. She'd moved there a year before. And I was like, I always thought it would be cool to get paid to roller skate.
Mm.
So I want to do that. And so I went to Orlando and I auditioned for Disney. And I got a job performing and roller skating for various roles that they had, and doing other like dancing and acting stuff. And then ended up getting a roller skating job with Universal as like a 50s diner girl. And so that got me working at Universal. And then I was having like a big career change. I was like, my body hurts. I'm tired. I don't think I want to do entertainment anymore. I need to change. So I went through a really long time. Actually, when I met you, it was a very, very hard period because I had dropped down to part-time and was trying to look for different work, and I couldn't find anything. And then I ended up getting that job. And I was like, well, it's kind of in the industry, but it's seasonal, right? It's only pilot season. We just worked on the market research for pilot season. And I enjoyed being back at Universal because during like the crash, they had cut my skating role and all this in like 2000, was that 2008? And so I enjoyed being back at Universal. And eventually Universal, I left I left the industry. I was still seasonal at Disney. And I was like, if anywhere gave me a full-time contract to roller skate, especially if Universal had an opportunity for me to have a full-time contract to roller skate, that's the only way I would go back to entertainment in that form. And I wasn't having very much luck getting behind the scenes like I wanted. And then Universal opened their Superstar Parade in 2012, and I auditioned for it. And so I left the office job I was doing, and I was still working at Robert A. Brilliant during seasonal times. And then I got a roller skating job in Superstar Parade. And after doing that for about a year and a half, I consulted their HR department. And I said, I'd really like to move into art and design. I don't really love horror movies, but for some reason I love the art that comes with horror movies. And I was like,
Mhm.
I would really love to work on Halloween Horror Nights, to be in the design process, the art process of creating these houses. And by this point, I'd been out of college for a very long time, like 10 years almost.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, I don't really know how I've been out of it so long. I've done a little few like costuming projects for a friend here, or like a little gig there, but nothing huge. And I was teaching dance, but I wasn't really in that part of the industry at all. And Universal basically told me to leave
Oh,
because
wow.
yeah, in my meeting with HR, I talked to a lot of people and they said, well, just become a supervisor for Horror Nights, just become an assistant stage manager. And I'm like, you don't understand. A stage management route is not an art route. It's
Mhm.
a management route, and it's a way you can get into producing if you want to be, like, or production management and production coordination. And I'm like, but that's not what I want to do. I
Mhm.
like working with my hands. I like building stuff. I like creating stuff. And so when I had my meeting with HR, because finally the head of entertainment, I had a meeting with him. He was very personable, would sit down one-on-one with anybody who wanted any kind of career advice. And he said, HR will do a career counseling thing. They'll go over your resume. They'll tell you what opportunities are available. And so I went and talked to them, and the woman said, you could stay here for like 7 or 8 years and try to work your way up and get in there, and you could take a production assistant job. And she said, but your resume is too good for an entry-level position. Our portfolios are very big for the other positions. We
Right.
don't have any mid-level. You're mid-level. She said, I honestly
Mm.
would advise leaving, getting experience outside of theme parks for 2 to 3 years, and come back and you can get the job you want, instead
Mm.
of wasting all that other time in roles that aren't necessarily going to further you in your career.
Which what
So
some people do.
yes, a lot of my friends have done it, and that's fine
Mhm.
if you want to do that. I was a
Right.
person who I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. So it wasn't well, I have to keep a full-time job for these people, these things.
Mhm.
I'm just worried about myself and what I want to do with my career. And so I was looking at Atlanta, New York, and New Orleans, and a job fell in, or not a job, an apartment kind of fell into my lap here. I had enough
Mhm.
vacation to take 1 month vacation, where I was going to look for an apartment, but I accidentally ended up with an apartment before I got here. And this was in February 2014. I was coming up for February 2014, going back to Universal to finish my contract in March. And then I was going to move up in April if it seemed promising. But a promise I made to myself, I had seen a ton of friends. I mean, being in this industry, New York is a big place. People go. A lot of my college
Mhm.
friends had come here. A lot of friends from Disney had come here, and Universal had come here. Being in entertainment, this is where people come. They have Broadway dreams.
Right.
They have TV dreams. They have all that. And it's not that they were dreams I had too. But I've
Mhm.
seen so many people come and take a job at a store, at a restaurant, at a bar, and they end up
Mhm.
working 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs, hustle, hustle, hustle. They have no time to put into what they came here for, because you
Right.
can't. It's competitive. You don't just get to come here and get a job the day after you arrive.
Oh, yeah. I'm in New York.
Didn't you know I'm here? Jobs rain on me, like. So I got lucky. The apartment I got was pretty affordable. I didn't have any money. I'm not going to lie to anybody and say I didn't come here with money. I had very little safety net. Um, But as a wise friend in Florida told me when I told him I was saving up to move and trying to get all my ducks in a row, he said, honey, you'll never be ready. You just got to set a date and do it. Because if you say you're waiting until you're going to be ready, you're never ready enough. You'll never feel safe enough. You just have to jump. And another one of my friends, he said, you have to decide if you're going to go all in on yourself or only halfway. And you can't do this halfway. And so for me, I knew I had experience administrative temping in the past. And so I was like, there are a lot of offices in New York. And I made a deal with myself that I would not take any full-time or part-time job while living in New York that was not in my industry. I only planned to be here 2 to 3 years. But I made that deal with myself, and I was like, if I'm running out of money, luckily I was in a month-to-month situation. I was like, if it's not working out and I can't afford it, I just go back to Florida. I go back to Universal where I was still seasonal. Like I could get a job there. I could, but I was like, if I'm not going to go all in on this, if I'm not going to make what I came here for my priority, then I don't want to be here. I can be an administrative or executive assistant anywhere. Why live in a city where my family isn't, where my friends aren't? I mean, I knew people here, but I didn't have any super close friends that were living here at the time. And so I said, for the first year, you're not allowed to take a full or part-time job. Not in your industry. And I did not accept a full-time job until May 2015, after I had lived here for over a year.
Okay.
Yeah. And I took that job just as a break to save some money and a break from the hustle so that I could regroup and launch my website and know by that point I had a clearer vision of what I wanted now that I was here in the city and understood the landscape a little more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you went, because you know how sometimes we have it in our head, because it starts in our head first.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Me in New York, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? What I'm going to wear? Where I'm going to sleep? I don't have any money. What am I going to do? All that comes into your head. You know what I mean? Because for whatever reason. And when it keeps playing in your head, you tend to believe it. Well, some people. But I
Yeah.
think it's a Virgo. I think it's a September Virgo thing. We're like, nah. I know with me, I'm like, yeah, nah.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's scary. I tell people I love walking. So New York is not a scary place in that sense. But especially when I first moved here and the subway was only like $2.25 or $2.50. Now it's like almost $3 a ride.
Okay.
There were times I would walk from Midtown Manhattan. I would walk 5-6 miles home.
Oh, wow.
I didn't really think it was a good idea for me to spend the money on the subway. And I mean, I didn't have anything else to do also.
Right.
Like these were times I didn't have anything else to do, but I was like, I don't know when my next job is. So I don't know if or like I went out with a friend today and I should probably just save that $2.50 and walk home.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey.
No, I know the city very well.
Hey, I would have done something like that too. I mean, I think what it is, when you have a set goal, uh, you might have obstacles that get in your way, whatever it may be. But I always believe in a backup plan to the backup plan. That always been me. Now, everyone can pull that off. And I think when people look at my life and, well, you lived here, you done this, you done that, and it's like I make it look easy. But I mean, I'm going through a lot of stuff right now. And people say like, wow, if that was me, I would be worried, I'll be crying every day. But okay, so what would that do? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That wouldn't just make the situations worse.
Yeah.
So no, I think what it is with me, I keep myself in projects. I call them projects. I keep myself in projects that I work on. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate this time to this, and then I'm gonna do this and this and this and this and then it goes this and this and this. But I mean, that's something I have to do that helps me because I can't keep telling myself, you know what, it didn't work out. Okay, well, go ahead and whine to whoever that's gonna listen to you. Have your pity party. I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that. So, wow, okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that information. So now that tell us a little bit more about the set design. Like, so what's the difference between set design and costume design? Or is it a difference?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big difference, right? Because costumes, you're working with what you're working with people. You're working
Mhm.
with an individual character's emotions or what that individual feels or is feeling at that time. The wardrobe, the wardrobe changes day to day, scene to scene. I always think of the movie Something's Gotta Give with Diane Keaton. In the
Mhm.
beginning, she's like always wearing white pretty much in that movie, white or beige. And in the beginning, all her necklines are up here. And as the film
Mhm.
slowly goes on and she's opening up as a character, her necklines get like lower and lower, like
Oh
she's
wow.
loosening up. She's not like this turtleneck person anymore. Now she's
Mhm.
like in a crew neck. And maybe they're becoming more t-shirts and not super heavy, bulky, like strict in fabric, like where you can't see her as a person, where she's hiding in her clothes,
Mhm.
like as she opens up as a person, her wardrobe opens her up as a person. Whereas if you're dealing with a set design, you're looking at more the space that person inhabits, and that's going to be the space that they inhabit pretty much all the time. It's not going to change with their day to day. It might get
Mhm.
messy because, they're having that kind of day where it's messy or whatnot. But for the most part, you're bringing their personality out or what the show wants to show you from their personality via the set elements. Like
Mhm.
the movie Gattaca is all about DNA and cleanliness and all this science, stuff. And it's a very clean set, very sterile, because that's a lot of this world they live in is very sterile.
Mhm.
And in Jude Law's apartment, the staircase is built like the helix, like a DNA strand. And
Mm,
there's a lot of
okay.
little subtle things like that, which that's not necessarily telling of his specific character, more as this is what we want to get across to you from the film. Like this is a high underlying idea of the film. So with set
Mhm.
design, we'll incorporate a lot more of those kind of elements through it with the production design and whatnot.
Mhm.
They're not necessarily focused on the individual.
Okay.
Yeah. And then props, because I do a lot of props.
Mhm.
And those can be something as simple as like, yes, this is the kind of glass I drink out of. And whether this is just because it's the first glass that I happen to see at the store and I'm in a rush and I need to buy them, or or we actually thought about it,
Mhm.
you can kind of tell based on the scene if it's how important the glass they're drinking out of is. Or like I
Okay.
just had a movie on a horror movie I production designed. I was trying to be very clever with the coffee mugs. Anytime there's coffee mugs, and it's a psychological thriller and a horror movie, but I was trying to bring humor here and there, in dark moments, or say
Okay.
something about, you know, one of the women is very into family, so the mug she drank tea out of all the time said like family is forever, you know, and that's the mug, that was her mug, that's the mug she always had. And I found this really cheesy, I can't remember if it says like reach for your dreams or something like that, and we placed it in, I was like, this is the mug that is going to be on, it's the mug he makes coffee in on the day that like something very, very tragic is going to happen right after it. And for me, I liked it with the juxtaposition of it's happy-go-lucky and then boom, it's not. But there are little subtleties like that that you can put in with the props. And if it's this person's backpack or purse that they carry all the time, we call it their hero prop. You know, their hero cell phone or their hero backpack. It's an element that character has with them all the time. And that's where props can become a little more like costume, in the sense that these items reflect their personality. It reflects who they are. How clean is it? How dirty is it? Is it covered in sketches? You know, because they're an artist. So do they get paint all over their bag or their coat or this and that? Yeah.
Okay. No, it just sounds interesting. So for people who may be watching this, you know, when it air and after the replay, they may say, wow, maybe I want to get into costume or set design. You know what I mean? They can contact you and you can be their mentor, right?
Yeah. You know, I mean, but there's a lot of, so I'm in the art department, and there's a lot. Like if you're talking about going into TV, so theater is a little different. Theater, we don't have as many roles, because I do work in theater. I do Broadway shows, off-Broadway shows, off-Broadway shows, as a prop artisan, and then I'm a union set dresser in TV and film, and then also production design, independent films, and I art direct and this and that. But there are people called scenics, and all they do is paint. Like they paint the walls, they age everything. So we'll come in and the set will have pristine white walls, but you can't have pristine white walls. It's got to be dirty around the light switches, because people have been hitting these light switches for, you know, and like the door frames, and there's a little bit of dust that's going to gather around the floorboards. So the scenics will come in and do all the scenic treatment. You have greens people. They deal with all of the plants on set. Any fake trees, any plants, any things like that. If you're doing an outdoor set, but you're shooting it indoors, the greens people are taking care of all of that. You have your food people, your food stylists. They just do food. They handle all the food that's on set, all the food the actors are going to eat, all of that stuff, you know. And you have props, and you have set, and you have, you know, weapons specialists sometimes, depending if your show has a lot of weapons. You might have a unit that's specifically just taking care of all of your police stuff. And then you have people that just coordinate the stuff. They know the art stuff, but they coordinate, you know. You have specific shoppers, you have the production designer, and then you have the specific set decorator. And they tell you like what they want everything to look like. And then the set decorator sends their shoppers out to go find what they need. And the set decorator leads the people with like dressing the set and decorating the set. And like, you know, I'm a set dresser in the union, and a lot of times our job is cleaning because the
Mm.
studio sets are there and then they shot in there yesterday. So everything got moved around. So we have books of continuity that we have to look through and say, okay, this is where this vase goes, and this is where this photo album goes, and this is where this goes. But it all got moved yesterday because they were playing with it in the scene. So now we have to put it all back. You know, and I just worked on the new Peacock show, Dr. Death, that just season 2 that just came out last week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Mandy Moore's character she like moves in her apartment. And so they shot a scene where she was moving. And so everything's boxed up. But then we had to go back and shoot scenes from before she was moving. So we had to go back in and be like, okay, now get everything out of the boxes. And where was it? And so now we got to move her back into her house because her character lives here again, you know, and you're cleaning because, oh, they were eating in here yesterday, so milk got spilled on the floor or this and that, and sound stages are notoriously dusty, so you have to think, okay, is this a room that's supposed to be dusty or is this supposed to be really clean? And sweep and clean and do all that, but it's a lot of work. There's a lot of people involved, you know, because it's a lot going on, and it's a lot of stuff constantly getting shipped in, stuff constantly getting shipped out. You know, like, we're done with these scenes, we need to do these scenes. Now we're in like carpenters. I didn't mention that. There's like a whole,
oh, wow.
You have to have all your carpenters, you have to have your electricians, because we are building houses, you know, essentially. That's what's wild about it. We're installing flooring, we're lifting sofas all the time. During the pandemic, when we weren't able to work, the first time I went back to work and lifted a sofa, I remember I was like, this feels good. Like, my muscles,
this is what I've been missing.
This is what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah. But then you have other things. Like, I worked on Impractical Jokers for about a season and a half. And then I did part of their COVID show, Dinner Party.
Okay.
And since that is a reality show and not a scripted show, we're not really building sets. So everything we're doing is much smaller, but we're also building mechanical pranks and stuff, which is, you know, we're looking at one of the first things I did on that show. They were like, I need you to come up with a fake vomit recipe that can be painted onto a shirt that somebody can do acrobatics in, and it's going to stay in one spot. And I did, and it was edible, fully edible, if anybody chose to eat it. It was pretty disgusting, but yeah.
Wow. Okay. I wouldn't want to be that person, but okay.
I mean, no one had to eat it, but you could if you wanted to. It was edible.
Right. Wow. So when you watch now, or maybe then, when you watch different movies, TV shows, plays, do you really pay attention now to the set design? Like, I should have been on this project, or they could have done this, or like, do you start critiquing things now more that you're a set designer?
I guess critiquing maybe a little bit, but I have a lot of respect for the people in my industry, and I know I'm constantly learning new things. I find myself on my Instagram a lot of times and I'm just like, wow, like what these people are coming up with is so amazing and so great. And, sometimes I still can't believe that I am involved to this level, like somebody will share something and I'm like, oh yeah, like I worked on that, or I know them, or, oh, that's one of my favorite vendors. People don't know about them. Like they're like legacy. Um, there are some times where I'm like, it's an interesting choice. They did it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly I just think it's interesting, and I'm more thinking, how did they, if it's usually something I'm like, how did they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Or like Netflix show Lock and Key that they did a while back. I was like, did they have an entire unit to just make the keys? Like to just design these keys? Did they have, and it's like, Catch Me If You Can. I'm like, do they have an entire unit that just did paper props? Like, did they, because there's so many of them. And
Right.
but as I've gone on, I've learned that some people just, they're prop artisans. There's a guy who lives, I want to say, in like New Hampshire or Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And he just builds paper props in his backyard in a shed. People come to him and they ask him to create children's storybooks for shows. He made the Book of Secrets for National Treasure. He said he spent like 4 months on that book, and it was only like 30 seconds of shooting, but you have to fill in like every book, every page. And I remember watching Umbrella Academy, and there's a hero prop that's Vanya's book that Five has like written in a lot. Like there's a lot of writing on almost every page. And I remember thinking, how many of those did they have? Because another thing you have to worry about is things get lost. Things get lost, they get broken over the span of time. So you need more of them. And it's like, geez, how long did somebody take to make this prop? Because that's, and some things, it's a lot of money that goes into just one little piece because it took so long for that little element to be made. But it's important for the show.
Okay. So how many plays have you been to since you've been in New York?
Have I been to?
Yeah. Because I always would see on Facebook like, oh, you show the playbill. I'd be like, man, I'm kind of jealous, but
well,
I want to know.
another deal I made with myself, or like promise I made to myself when I moved here, was if I was going to live in a city with this much theater at my fingertips, I would go to see one show a month, or a month. So 12 a year, which I did. I either hit 12 or a little more for basically every year until 2020. And then 2020 happened, and now I go sometimes or I don't, but also we've had 2020 happened and the strike happened and all this stuff. And now I'm trying to finally make it a point to go to things I've worked on, because for the longest time I hadn't seen anything that I worked on. So yeah, now I mostly just go see things that I work on unless I have a free weekend. I'm hoping that changes this next year, but yeah, mostly just been stuff. I think this last year I just saw 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 shows this last year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I get excited every time you kind of show like where you are. I know when I came to
I
New
guess it
York.
must have been 7, because I know I at least worked on 4 theater shows and I saw them all this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know I've seen, I guess 8, because, yeah. Because I just saw The Rockettes and Aladdin and Back to the Future recently. So, but yeah.
So probably the next time. Now, I did say that I was going to go for, because I went to the 95th Macy's Day Parade. So I said on the 100th, I would come back for the ball drop. But I don't know. I'm trying to see what I'm going to do because I wouldn't mind being there for the 100th Macy's Day Parade. And try to go on the I think of the Upper East Side, maybe.
Where it starts?
Yeah, because I had tickets to go, but that day I couldn't go, and I only went like down the street from the hotel I was at. So, but yeah, I want to do it on a different angle this time around and see if I get a better. I mean, I had like a good view.
Yeah,
I took a lot of pictures, but this time around, I want to do something a little bit different. But then I have to plan 2 trips because I want to go for the parade and then I want to go again for the ball drop. But hopefully I'm able to go to both. But if I had to choose, I would probably just do the ball drop because I already did the Macy's Day Parade.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the starting. So you want to be at like the starting. I mean, it's the Upper West Side, but I think.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
By Columbus Circle, because
yes, Columbus Circle.
They fill up the balloons at the Natural History Museum, which is on the west side.
Okay.
But yeah.
That was my fault. Sorry.
No, it's not that big a deal. But in case anybody is watching,
like she don't know New York. I don't live there.
She lives in New York and she doesn't know where the parade starts.
I do remember Columbus Circle though, because
Yeah.
But you know what?
I'm going on a decade here, so I'm supposed to know, right?
Right. Because Universal Records is actually on one of those blocks.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I passed it. I took a picture of it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's yeah. So that was, I wanted to bring that up. But so let's just say someone's watching us right now and they have this big dream to go to New York because they heard so much about New York. And if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Is it the city that never sleeps?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Isn't it something else too? The Big Apple?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure.
It's the Big Apple. It's the city that never sleeps. It's if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
So I'm bringing that up because,
it's an island.
I was going to say something. I'm not. Well, so someone says, you know what, I want to go there. What advice would you give them? And I want you to be upfront, don't sugarcoat, because I think when people hear your story and what you went through and the steps you went through, right? Because your goal is different, right? But they want to come out there and they may not have any money, no family, no place to stay. What advice would you tell them when they want now and their heart set on New York? What would you tell them when they come out there to fulfill whatever dream or goal that they're trying to fulfill?
So a lot of people said this to me. A lot of people who have lived in New York for a long time or who have lived here on and off. A thing that I often hear is that if the city likes you, the city will let you know. And
Interesting. Okay.
I think that has to do with, I think it has to, so I was always like, the city must have embraced me when I came.
Okay.
But I think that has to do with, you have to be open enough to embrace the city. You can't be afraid. Not going to say that scary things have never happened to me in New York, because that would be a lie. It's a big city. There's a lot of people. There's a lot you have to look out for. There's a lot of stuff that you just have to be aware of, right?
Okay.
But you have to be aware of things everywhere.
Right.
And, it's like, just, you need to understand your surroundings and not, you will see people from all walks of life. I'm from Idaho originally, so moving to Florida was a bit of a shock also, like, first off, from Idaho. So moving to Florida was a shock. Moving to New York, totally different than both of those other places. Like, totally different. The people you're going to meld with, the people who you're right next to all the time. And it's hard. It can be hard. It can be hard seeing, people struggling in the subway. It can be hard to see people strung out on drugs, or people who don't have homes. And it can be hard to live next to that and not feel like you're contributing to them having a bad life in some way. You just have to embrace the city and all that it has, be it beautiful, be it ugly, be it hard. Because it really is a beautiful place. And New Yorkers are really nice. I mean, people tell me
Some were when I was there.
People tell me that I'm too nice to live in New York. Like, to be in New York, you have to be a bit of a jerk. And I'm like, I'm like, I think you were a jerk before you moved here, and you moved to New York, so you could use that as an excuse.
Right.
Like, why? But, New Yorkers are in a hurry, and they're very short, very blunt. I don't mean like height-wise. They're just very,
Right.
they're very to the point.
Straight to the point. Right.
Yeah. They're not messing around, and that can come off as abrasive to people. But, for the most part, they're nice. If you ask directions, or like you see a woman pushing a baby carriage in the subway, 9 times out of 10, someone asks her if they can help her carry it up the stairs. You'll see, I see it all the time, and I do it. You see people in the trains, and they're lost. They're looking around, and somebody local almost always will say, "Can I help you find something? Where are you going?" Or you hear people on the train, and they say, like, mention where they're going. They're tourists. They mention where they're going. And usually somebody who lives here will say, "Hey, you're actually going to Brooklyn.
Okay.
You're on the bridge to Brooklyn. So you're going to have to get off and get on the train going back to Manhattan and go uptown because you came the wrong way."
Right.
And they'll look out for you, but you just have to, you can't let the city get you down. Right. And you have to be clear on your goal, because if you come here, I know that's like two answers, but you have to be clear on your goal, because if you come here wanting to do something and you just get 5 survival jobs and you never put the time in to do the thing you came here to do, you're never going to do it. You're just not going to. There's too many people waiting in line to do it after you. And if you don't jump on it and say, "I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this happen," somebody else will get it before you.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, be clear on your goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how was Christmas out there? Because I know when I came for the parade, the day I left, or maybe the next day, they were putting up the tree.
Uh-huh.
So, just a few minutes, kind of like tell us like how it is during Christmas time. So, if someone wants to come around Christmas time, what would they expect?
Crowds. Very, very busy. If you don't like crowds, go to Rockefeller Center at like 6 or 7 in the morning. No one will be there.
Oh,
Or go there around midnight,
hmm.
midnight 1, 2. If you want to see it lit up, no one will be there. If you
Okay.
go in the afternoon and the evening, it is so crowded. There are cops everywhere. There are so many things going on. There's holiday markets everywhere. They're super crowded. I mean, I go to them, but they're super
Hmm.
crowded. Um, uh, the window displays are phenomenal. They're fantastic. I've got to work on some at Macy's last year,
Okay.
which is another thing you can do if you're in my realm, is install a lot of restaurants and shops and whatnot do art installations all the time. And so
Hmm.
a lot of people from my industry, we get to do that. We get called upon to do those things. Um, but I mean, if you're going to come at Christmas time, you just have to know that it's going to be crowded like Disneyland at Christmas time. It's going to be that
Okay.
crowded. On the streets of New York, it's going to be that crowded. Um, but there's lights everywhere and it's festive. There's tons of trees, tons of ice skating rinks, tons of stuff to see. I know there's a lot to see in Brooklyn, and there's
Hmm.
some light stuff in Queens and in the Bronx. They light up the zoo at night. Like in Brooklyn, they light up the Botanic Garden. Um, yeah, there's a lot to see and do.
Hmm.
But it will be crowded. It will be it will be peak time.
Okay.
So everyone wants to see New York at Christmas time.
Okay.
And I love to see. I mean, I live here and I still make it. I didn't see the Macy's Oh, yes, I did. I did see the Macy's windows this year. So I didn't see the
Okay.
Bergdorf windows this year, but I live here and I go see everything.
So the next time I'm there, one, I'm gonna make sure I get my 10-minute hug.
Yeah.
And then two, maybe we can, if I can afford it, you know. So I'm gonna take my I'm gonna save my first YouTube check and I'm gonna see if I can be able to go to a play. But
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Go to a Rush. Uh, Everybody says go to the TKTS booth. Don't, it's
Mhm.
expensive. Don't go to the box
That's the one
office
in the middle of,
in the middle of Times Square under the red sea.
yes. Okay. Yes.
But it's not really that cheap. Go to the box office for the theater because a lot of
Okay.
times they have rush tickets for the show. And if you want to get them ahead of time, you can look at BroadwayBox.com or you can enter any of the digital lotteries
Mhm.
on like Broadway Direct or directly through the website or on TodayTix app. TodayTix has really good deals on shows too.
Okay.
It's not that expensive.
Okay.
It can
All right.
be, but you can see a good show for $45.
Well, I don't want to be all the way in the back.
But you're not necessarily in the back if that's a rush ticket or a lottery ticket.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. I was like, well, what are they doing?
First row
What
isn't
the
that great.
hell is?
First row isn't that great. Fifth row is like a better seat because if you're closer to the stage can be higher than you, and so some
Hmm.
things you miss when it's really far
You're
back.
right. Looking up.
Yeah. So like fifth row is the best, but I like to be up in the mezzanine. because the orchestra, you're too low, and if the person in front of you sits and they got a big head, you can't see anything.
Okay. So,
Just tips and tricks.
so tell me about some shows that I should look out for that you worked on so I could say Jessica did that.
So I was a set dresser on Madoff Monster of Wall Street on Netflix. Set dresser on Dr. Death on Peacock.
Okay.
Did some episodes of set dressing for Godfather of Harlem on the last season. But I forget what network that's on. The Blumhouse movie called The Vigil. I was a scenic artist on that. I don't know what that's streaming on at the moment. Let's see, some upcoming projects that I can't talk about.
I don't have Netflix, so
I don't have Netflix either, but
I'm gonna try to get the password to somebody's account. I don't know. One of my friends, they have it. They gonna help me out.
Deer on Apple Plus season 2. I was a assistant art director. We shot that during COVID. Traveled around. It was wild. What else? Because I always forget. I did some stuff for Drew Barrymore's show, but you can't really find those now. Like I said, Impractical Jokers season 8. I did the whole season. Right? I was like, it was an 8 or 9. I think maybe it was 9.
Okay.
9 and part of 10, or it was 8 and part of 9. I did Impractical Jokers dinner party. The Independent, which is a movie on Peacock.
Okay.
I mean, I do a lot of commercial stuff, so that's not necessarily, you can't necessarily go and watch that right now. But hopefully I have a show coming to Amazon soon. Yeah, a fun show coming to Amazon soon. They pushed it back, but it's supposed to come out next year. But I can't talk about it.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So
but I was a decorator on that.
Okay. Now, so like some of the shows that you did work on, have they won awards that you were a part of and like, oh my gosh, we won, we were nominated, or we won this or that, or
Yeah, so actually one of the first productions I ever did was a commercial. It was a Budweiser Super Bowl commercial. It was the first thing I was a production assistant on, and we were nominated for an Emmy, but the other Budweiser commercial with the puppy won. So we lost out to a puppy.
wow.
Yeah. So a film I did called I Carry You With Me won awards at Sundance and then got distributed from that. The horror film that I production designed, An Angry Boy, which we're hoping gets a distribution deal. We were at about 8 different festivals this fall. Our lead actor took home a number of awards. We won some Best Director awards. We won a number of Best Feature Film awards and Best Script awards. I think every festival we went into, we walked away with at least 1 award, and one festival we walked away with 4. So that was cool. I guess I don't always pay attention because sometimes I forget what shows I've even worked on. But yeah, those are some. Those are some. And there will be more to come.
So can I have your autograph now? Can I have it now, or do I have to wait until, when I see you in LA somewhere?
I mean, I say wait, get in line. Just kidding.
Wow, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so the last and final thing, I need you to talk about your social media. So if you can start off with your website first,
Yeah.
kind of like tell us, what's on it and what projects. So if they went to your website, what would they see? And then go into like Etsy and,
Yeah.
where to
Yeah.
follow you.
Yeah. So my website is essentially my portfolio, and it's also a place where people can order custom props from or hire me for gigs. You'll find a list of TV shows, theater shows, movies, all the stuff I've forgotten about. You'll be able to, that for the most part, it's not fully updated yet,
Mhm.
but for the most part, I try to keep it pretty well updated on, and I have a page with things that are coming up, things that are coming out, things to look out for on there, little bio, any installations that I've done at like restaurants or for weddings, stuff like that is all at JayMarieCreative.com. That's JayMarie.com, which is at the bottom and underneath my name there. I have it spelled out. And then my Instagram is at JayMarieCreative, where you can sometimes see processes of me. You can see my process of making some props and distressing some props here and there, and then announcements of things coming out or awards we've won at festivals and whatnot. And then my Etsy, where I sell some handmade clay lollipops that people use for dog photography or people photography. I make some other things too, like fake cakes and fake foods for TV and theater, but then also, some people just like to have them in their homes. So, or window
Wow.
displays. So I sell those on Etsy. Yeah. And that's handmade by JayMarie because somebody else took JayMarie Creative before
Oh,
I got them.
darn it.
But that's okay, because then I think they also tried to get the website handle and they tried to get the Instagram, but I already had it from for years.
Mm, okay.
Because I only launched my Etsy this last year, whereas
Okay.
I've had the website since 2018, 2017. And I've
Okay.
been fully working on my own, not for anybody else, only working for me, doing this
Wow.
since August 2017.
Okay.
So more than 6 years, the business has been going. The website has been working, I guess.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Um, Thank you so much for doing this interview
Yeah,
with me.
of course.
Um, I know that we were kind of going back and forth on like the timing and whatever, but thank you for taking the time out to, show me some love because,
Yeah,
I'm
of
just
course.
getting started, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, and, like I said, when I come there, I think this year was the 97th.
I
Yes.
think it's 2026 is
Okay.
the
The
is the
100th.
year you're looking to come.
Okay. So when I come there in 2026, we got to link up again.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna try to do both, but if not, it'll be for the ball drop.
All right.
But also to my audience, if you're watching this on a replay, make sure you leave a comment below if you want to know more about New York, set design, costume design. If you like what she said, if you disagree, you live in New York, she don't know what she's talking about, whatever it is, leave that in the comments below. Um, Follow her on Etsy, her website, Instagram. It's scrolling across the bottom. And that's pretty much it. That's all I gotta say. You want to say something before we close it out?
No, that's pretty much it. Just follow me if you're interested in knowing anything and yeah, ask questions. I love to help people find work. I love to help people find guidance in the in this weird industry.
All right, guys. Please like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next interview.